All right. Scott, on our last pod, you said that one of the all-time worst things you can do in pickleball is miss a return. I agree with that. And in pickleball, we have almost two different games happening inside of a game. There's this concept of winning points, and then there's this concept of preventing points from being won. The latter concept, well, it starts with the return. And the return is such a misunderstood shot. I've never heard two people teach the return the same. And I think a lot of that is you have tennis coaches and tennis players who've been taught how to return in tennis, which is extremely different than how we return in pickleball. In fact, and come to think of it, I don't really hit any shot in pickleball like I hit my pickleball returns. It's a different animal, a misunderstood animal. So Scott, let's help tame this beast for our listeners at home. That's right. It's episode 3 of the Pickleball Breakdown, and we are breaking down returns. So first question for you, Scott. Am I way off base here? Is the return as important in your opinion as it obviously is in mine?
Yes, I think it's just about the most important shot because when you're the returning team, if you screw up the return, if you miss it or don't hit it well, like the other team has a chance to score points in traditional pickleball scoring. So it is vitally important to hit a quality return. You can't, it's like when I first started, it's like the worst thing you could do was miss a return because it's an immediate point. They don't have to hit a third. So it's like, yes, this ball has to go in play, but add to that because of the way pickleball scoring works, the returning team has the advantage. The serving team has to let it bounce. So if you are the returning team, you have the advantage. You need to keep that advantage by hitting a quality return. So yes, it is a super important shot. It's like the serve comes, the returner has the advantage if they do something with it, and that should, if you're playing well, dictate kind of the rest of the way the point turns out.
100%. And whenever someone tells me they're having trouble with their fourth shot, my first question is, let me see your return. And I think the fourth shot is also very misunderstood and one of the absolute most important shots in pickleball right now. And it all starts with that return. So with that said, walk me through good return fundamentals. Give me and our listeners like return 101.
So return 101 to me is first you need to know kind of what's the goal, like what am I trying to do here. When we talked about the serve last week, we talked about depth, and depth is super important with the return of serve as well as the serve depth is important, and depth is, I think, even more important on the return. It gives the further the ball travels, the more time you have to come in behind it. There's different ways of doing that. I can hit it low and hard and deep. I can hit it I like to cut my return and hit kind of a slice, and so it floats back there. So that floating, it takes time to get back there deep, which gives me time to get into the kitchen. You can lob it, you can do it a variety of ways. So when I first started, it's like it was hit the return slow and deep to give yourself time. A couple of years after that, kind of the new group of young tennis players came into the pros, and they just started hitting the return hard. I was
Yeah,
taught not to hit it hard because you take your own time away.
right.
That changed when the athletes got better. So at the pro level, hit the ball hard works now because it makes for a difficult third. But I don't think it works at the amateur level, because at the amateur level, when you hit that return hard, you take your time away, and amateurs need the time. The
So
pros can make up the time, but the amateurs don't. And so I'm a kind of a floaty and deep to give yourself time, maybe more important than hit it as hard as I can and maybe not get in so far.
So you're saying, look, you can hit it low and deep, high and deep. You just care that it's deep.
Yes, there's very few. Yes, with very few exceptions. Yeah, that's
Okay.
like
And
going for depth.
and a question I had for you, in addition to trajectory, which you just covered, was spin. And you kind of already touched on this. And I feel like years ago, the conventional return style was a slice. And then paddle technology, grit increases, and all of a sudden, when you're seeing these slice returns, if you're type of tennis player, you're going to drive that ball so hard. Like you're just eating up the spin. that your opponents are giving you. So now I feel like in the past couple of years, we've seen more top or flat. So what would you tell our listeners at home in terms of the type of spin they should be putting on the return?
So yes, what you're saying is definitely true at the pro level. Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm playing a very good pro with a good drive and I give them that
Mm-hmm.
slice return with backspin, if you've got some good action on your forehand, you can use that against me and get the ball to dip.
Absolutely.
But that's at the pro level.
Okay.
When I'm doing lessons with the 3-5 ladies at the park, and I cut my return, and I will do this on purpose to them. I will cut that thing and just watch them skip it into the net. Right? It doesn't
So
even hit the net. It hits the ground first, and because like they don't know how to handle it. So I think hitting spin at the amateur level, if you can hit a nice slice return and it gets back deep,
yeah,
until someone proves they can deal with it,
keep doing it.
nice. It's a nice option, and I've seen, even in the pros, there's plenty of good pros that will play that shot, and you have to prove that you can punish it before it stops. But
Yeah.
at the amateur level, I don't think the thing that applies to the pros and the way pros are teaching, no, you just want to hit that ball flat, otherwise people will do this. It's like, well, I don't think everyone can do it. And
Make them prove it is kind of your point. And I really like that. I can tell the listeners at home that when see someone slicing the ball, slicing their return, I start salivating and I basically just tell myself, okay, we're going to drive this and I'm going to try and put as much top spin as I can on it to keep that spin moving in the same direction. I will almost never try to hit a drop and like decelerate on it, if that makes sense. So for me, and maybe this is a little bit of a band-aid, I know that that shot's really hard to hit a good drop on. So I just commit to the drive. Is that good advice?
I think yes, knowing like having a plan, knowing what you're good at, and then like committing to that is good. It's like I think there's people who like for me it's like I don't know if it's going to help my drive. To me it could help my drop because I don't get as much topspin on my third shot drop as I would
Mhm.
like. And so if I see someone slice one, I'm like, ooh, maybe I can use this. Maybe I can use their backspin against them
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I like, it's like I like hitting shots that I don't normally have. And it's like, ooh, this is a cheat code. You just opened up more spin for my drop. So I'm just going to hit this thing firmly. And maybe if I can get my more spin on my drop,
Yeah.
it'll be even better.
That's well said. You know, you talked earlier about having a plan. And when Elise Jones and I, before we played our first MLP match, I sent her some notes on players. And she said, look, this is the way I like to think about matchups. And it was 5 questions. You know, number 1, who are we returning to? And I loved that. And we saw against the Chicago Slice when our team, the Bay Area Breakers, played Chicago Slice. I think you noticed this. In women's, they returned every single ball to me. In mixed, they returned every single ball to Colin. Both the players stuck to a game plan and they didn't deviate once. So, like what you said earlier about have a plan with your partner. Who are we returning to? And actually connect with a target. I catch myself as a pro in practice today, not even really thinking about it, just returning middle. And I'm like, I should probably be practicing doing something, having a plan here.
Yeah, I definitely like Elise's 5 questions and who do we return to is always
Mhm.
going to be one of them. And you're going to base that on like which of my opponents has a better third, a more consistent third, or which of my opponents is scarier at the
Mhm.
kitchen. So I'd like to keep them back.
Right.
I think there's certain guys in mixed who are just so big and quick. You don't want to return to their partner because then
Yep.
if their partner hits a good drop, now you've got this big aggressive guy up there causing havoc. So a lot of times you want to, you return to the person who's more dangerous and that I would like to
Yes.
keep back.
Eh,
But all things, it's like, but there's so many situations. That's a mixed situation. But if all things are, well, if levels are more equal, if it's 2 athletic players, then it's well, this person drives more. Do we want that drive or this person? Do we want the drive or do we want the drop? And it's usually the person who drops makes more balls. The person who drives makes less, but they're more dangerous.
Yeah.
And then it's your own risk tolerance. Well, how do I want to play this? Do I want long? If I'm fine with long points, well, I'll just return to the person who drops. We'll play long points and let's go. If I want the most, if I want to kind of get after someone who's going to miss, it's like let me
Yeah.
let this person miss. It's like if someone's going to play low percentage, I will play into those low percentages. I'll give them one or two, and then I'll take the other five.
I like what you said about returning to the better player. And I think for those of us, that could be like really new information, kind of mind blowing, actually. When I'm playing mixed and there's just a male beast on the court standing in the middle, where do I go? You got to go behind him. So, this notion of hitting more balls to the better player is super counterintuitive, but it's really, really good. All right. So, unpopular opinion for you. Ever since you helped me with my return, which I think the key thing for me was swing slower and buy more time to get to the line. And so now I feel like when I do that, even if I hit the return poorly, like mid-court or even shorter, I kind of don't care because I've arrived at the line and my return just dropped. So as my coach, you might not want to hear this, but like, does it even really matter how good or bad the return is as long as you've arrived?
Yeah, I mean, I think I recall talking to you about that, and what I was seeing was, it's like if someone's hitting a good serve to you, you were receiving it behind the baseline and just hitting it really hard, but you were stationary, and so you were hitting it, and you didn't really get going forward, in time to be. It wasn't optimal getting you to the line. And and when you're swinging that hard, the ball's getting to them quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, let's change this up. If we slow down your swing and we use your weight transfer plus your slowed down controlled swing to hit the ball, it's actually going to come off just as firm, if not more firmly. But you are moving forward already while the ball is going forward. And so you are arriving with it. And the difference in the timing of those two things it's important. This is how small the nuance is in pickleball.
That's so wild to me that I could swing slower and literally hit it as hard. But now I've got my mass behind it. You've got mass meeting mass versus letting it come to me swinging really hard and then I got to go in. And we talked about on our last pod, a huge mistake we see our students make is they start too close to the baseline. Ball comes to them and they're there because they want to get to the kitchen line quicker. But ball's coming to them. They realize I'm too close. They back up, hit the return, and then they have to reverse their momentum and sprint forward. There's a reason the pros stand with their butts on the video board. You don't have to go that far, but definitely try giving yourself some space. So Scott, talk to me about stacking. What changes when we are kind of reversed, when we have to reverse it? Talk to me about how am I changing my movement and where am I aiming?
So I think traditionally when you're stacking, so you have to hit your return and then get over diagonally to the other side. Usually you want to return down the line so that you take away, like they can't beat you with pace by hitting it hard cross court. In pickleball, the court is not that wide. So hard cross court is a very difficult shot to hit with pace for a winner to beat someone. Whereas if I'm on the right and I return cross court and then I have to hustle over there, that player who is hitting their third, if they have a good drive down the line, they can just straight up beat me with pace on a very makeable shot, and they have the entire court to land it in. So if I return cross court and I'm hustling to stack, it better be a good return, or I better know that person doesn't have a good forehand down the line. If I return down the line, now the left side player, they can hit it cross court to me as I run, but they can't put as much pace on it because if they hit it really hard, I'm just going to let it go wide. So that's kind of the first thing is hit it down the line so you can't be beaten with pace.
I always get a little nervous when I'm on the right returning and I need to switch and I go down the line because there's this second of time where my partner switches and I lose a little bit of sight of the ball and I'm so worried it's going to come as a drive to my right hip.
Yeah, I have kind of similar problems with that too, which is why I stacking wise, It's because I'm lefty and I play the right side mostly. When I'm stacking with someone, so my righty partner who's playing the left, when they're returning on the right, I stand off the court.
Exactly.
So that they can hit the ball down the line, and then they have they have 100% view the whole time. But when I'm returning on the left, usually the left side player is kind of the alpha, and that alpha often doesn't want to stand off the court and then kind of gets to the middle. They want to stand, where they normally stand, and then I am going to lose sight of it as we crisscross on the unstack. So basically what you want to do when you're the returner, I will hit that ball down the line, I will hustle across, and I will sit to cover that shot you just described, which is if they go hard, kind of middle, I'm lefty at my left hip.
Yeah.
That's out of reach of my partner, that's a good spot. And so that's what I'll defend. I won't defend things going to my backhand side because that's, again, going to be wide. So I do have to, I'm going to hit down the line, I'm going to hustle, and then I'm going to protect I need to protect my left side if they find a good spot middle.
The other thing you said that was super helpful to me, I was struggling in a mixed match, and you said, run. Like you yelled, like, run at me. I don't know, do you remember that? Or where were we? I don't think it was MLP because I was switching, so it couldn't have been MLP.
The only other place that could have been then was Newport.
I think we get into this habit of like, oh, I hit a good return, like, and we're like rewarding ourselves in the moment, like a little verbal like pat on the back. And it's like, no, like it's
that is kind of the benefit of having a second set of eyes watching you play during, a tournament like that, right? That Newport tournament, you were there all day, played 4 or 5 matches, and we don't always, after we hit that return, and once it's left the paddle, it's in the air, there's nothing stopping me from taking those first 2 steps after the ball has left. Don't rush through it. If those first 2 steps are very aggressive and fast, then kind of slow down. That gets you there. But if
it was mixed with Eric Onson's in Newport. You're totally right. You're totally right. That was it. And the other thing you told me was, hey, you have to complete the return before you start moving laterally to switch. Like focus on moving forward, hitting a good return, then moving sideways. And I think that's a huge mistake that I don't care if you're a pro, a 3-0, a 4-0. I think we are all potentially making that or capable of making that mistake when we're trying to reverse the stack.
Yeah, for sure. When we're the number one play against a team that's stacking, it's like if I'm playing against someone, I see that they're stacking, what do I want to do? I want to hit an aggressive serve to get a weak return so that I can drive at the person running in. That is definitely plan A versus a team that's stacking, especially in mixed. So as that returning team, it is way more important that I hit a quality deep return than it even is that I get all the way in. If I hit a decent return and only get halfway in, what are they going to do? Like if they can hit a shot from behind the baseline at my feet,
that's so well said.
They're probably going to beat me anyway. But what I don't want to do is run through it, kind of have it, if I hit it slightly or it's kind of just a medium depth shot. Now they have a very, very drivable ball, and they, to me, they are ahead in the point already.
No, I think that's brilliant. I fall victim to this all the time where I'm thinking about where I have to go and what I have to do next. I'm thinking about my 4th shot, and I haven't even hit my return yet, Scott. I equate that to started making more putts in golf when I stopped worrying and thinking about my comeback putt, my 2nd putt. It's like, hey, it's the here and now. Let's make this 8-footer. Worry about what comes later. Let's make a great stroke on this first putt. And I think that is such brilliant advice you just gave. Focus on making a good return and let the rest happen.
Yeah, I think if we can talk like specifically about what is going through your mind as you are the returner, and right as the serve is coming in, it's like your eyes have a job. They have to judge. You got to judge the pace that they hit it with. You have to judge the trajectory that it's coming at, so that you can figure out how deep it's going to be. Because if it's going to be coming in deep, then I need a short, quick backswing, and I need to deal with this. But
Yeah.
a lot of times, especially in amateur play, if the pace isn't there, if people just hit it softly and it's low over the net, that ball's going to land short. And if you're not sprinting
Yeah.
forward as soon as you see that, you're going to get aced. Like the variety of where the ball lands in amateur play is much different than pro play. Pros get the
Yeah.
ball pretty deep most of the time because there's just too big a penalty for hitting it short. But in amateur play, I think that's also the reason some people stand on the baseline is because, well, Mary has a good short serve. And
Yeah.
if I stand too far back, I can't get there. And so I would tell people it's like that's valid. That is super valid. And if you're playing Mary who has a good short serve, stand on the baseline and just notice how hard she's hitting it. If she beats you with some deep ones,
Yeah.
well, Mary's better than you, so you're gonna have trouble if she can hit both spots. Most people can't do both, but
Yeah.
you have to judge the pace. You've got to judge the trajectory so that you can get behind it. As soon as I see, that was hit with medium pace, it's going to land, 6 feet in front of the baseline. I can get behind this ball, step into it and through it, and hit if I get my split step, move through it, I can hit a really nice quality return off this ball. But if I see the pace is hard, trajectory is low, it's going to land
Yeah.
deep. If the trajectory is low, the ball isn't going to bounce up.
Yeah.
If the trajectory is higher, I'll get a higher bounce. I can do some different things with that. But you really have to recognize the pace and how low it's going to be, because the low one's the tough one. And then you have
Totally.
to have an appropriate low backswing. You have to get down to the ball differently. And all of that focus has to happen. You have to make that judgment before that serve crosses the net onto your side. Usually you have to already know, you have to have done the math. This one's going to land deep, I got to do this. This one's going to land short, I can hit my normal quality return. And I think most amateurs, they haven't done that math, and the ball
Yeah.
is still coming at them, and then they're just sort of doing the best they can and improvising, where if they had focused before that point started on just those kind of two things, it's like, how hard was this hit and what's the trajectory? So where's this ball going to land? And if you spend a fraction of a second longer looking at it and judging it, you then will have a better kind of natural, your body will know where to go once it's figured out where it's going to land. And then you'll hit better returns.
Yeah. Yeah. The other really great piece of advice you gave me about my own returns personally was get away from the ball. Like get to the side of it, get it away from you. Take that first step. And I want to pull up some visuals because I think we've got, 3 players that will visually just really help everyone listening at home who do such a good job of that first step. So Scott, do you think this is a good time to pull those videos up?
Yeah, I want to see them.
All right, who do you want first? Anna-Leigh, Federico Staxrud, or Jaume Martinez-Vic?
Let's start with Anna-Leigh.
Share screen. For those of you listening at home and not watching, I'm sorry, but I do think you will still get a lot out of this. And you can always check us out on YouTube. All right, I'm going to hit play.
So she's already really far back. Judge is moving in. That all happened very fast. But look at how far back she is, and then look at how far she has to come to hit that ball. It's like that serve landed middle of the box, if not closer to the kitchen line. But see that she's fully kind of running through this shot, right? That's what you talked earlier about, how returns are different than every other shot in pickleball. And if you come from tennis, you were probably taught you don't really want to be moving while you hit the ball. But on a pickleball return, you do want to be moving.
Yep.
And she moves right through that. You see, she didn't really swing that hard because she has all of her momentum going forward into that. And she hits it, nice and controlled and deep down the line. And look at how easily she arrives at the kitchen. No real rush.
Yep.
So that was just extremely routine.
Yep. And what I like about this so much, I'm going to freeze frame it right where her opponent, Georgia Johnson, is making contact. As soon as Georgia Johnson makes contact, look at Anna-Leigh. She is already moving. She's already taken her first step And something my sister Natalie, who's an up and coming pro, mentioned to me the other day was, hey, my returns got so much better, Jill, when you said start moving the second the ball leaves my opponent's paddle. Because what she was doing was waiting for it. So we talk about all these things we want printed on t-shirts, right? Like low dink tolerance. I want printed on a t-shirt, start moving when the serve has left your opponent's paddle.
I would say start moving as soon as you know whether it's going to be a forehand or a backhand. Like
Yes.
you saw when you froze that, her paddle
Mhm.
was already up and prepared. Like as soon
Yes.
as before that ball crossed the net, she already knew which shot she was going to hit, and her paddle
Hmm.
was up. What you see with amateurs, and I used to see this all the time, is they see the ball and they run to it with their paddle in kind of a neutral position out in front of them, and then they get to the
Yes.
ball and then take it back and forth and swing. Whereas as soon as she saw where it was going to be a forehand, the paddle was up, prepared, and
Exactly.
there was no rush in hitting that ball.
Exactly. All right, let's take a look at my favorite returner in the game. I could watch these returns all day long, Federico Staxrud. So, Scott, what do you see here?
That one that was very similar to Annalise, where it's like you see his paddle moving as soon as it's so his
Hmm.
paddle. He's already decided it's a forehand. He's moving his feet to the side to get away from it, as you just described, and then he's going to be able to come forward through it. Look at how deep that is, and he's at the kitchen.
So good. Wow.
Look at how, but the depth he gets is excellent.
One thing that I want to flag that I really like about his return is the pose. So, watch him pose. And in doubles, you see he holds the pose till he gets to the line, Scott. It's really like artistic. It's a thing of beauty. And what that means to me when he does that and he holds that pose is he's keeping the ball on his paddle for a really long time, aka he's swinging slowly. So something I teach my students is if you're having trouble with your returns, swing slowly, and if that kind of vernacular doesn't work for them, I say, okay, try keeping the ball on your paddle longer. And all of a sudden, you see the pose. And for me, when I'm really struggling with my return and thinking about the first step isn't helping, I go back to pose, baby, pose. That could be a t-shirt too. What do you think?
I could see that swing thought working. I think what I like about that thought is if you tell me to swing more slowly, then I I will naturally like it won't even I don't think it will even be conscious. I will just
Hmm.
realize, but if I swing slowly, the ball's not going to come off very hard. I better move through it,
Hmm.
and that would naturally get me to move through the ball if I am required to swing more slowly. So it's like, and if so that would get my body involved in the shot rather than just my swing. So it will definitely get you where you want to go.
I love what you just said, getting your body involved. When I'm not returning well, it's all arms. So here's a player who does an amazing job of using his entire body on the return. So I'm going to play Jaume Martinez Vic's return here. Scott, tell me what you see. Wow, that landed on the baseline.
Yeah, like great depth. But the first thing he does is his paddle goes down, and he gets down with it. So his knees are bent, and he times his body weight through that ball. He's not swinging like look at his swing. He's not swinging very hard. It's all of that
Hmm.
depth comes from the timing of him using his swing and his body together as he runs through it. Right? All three of these players have run through the
Hmm.
shot. They weren't stationary. They didn't hit then go. They
Yes,
judged the
ran through it.
ball and then timed their swing to be going through it as they hit it. And you know, again, that is one of the things that makes this shot different than any
And
other shot.
And something I love about Jaume, other than what you've already touched on, is how low he gets, how low he stays, his center of gravity through the shot, and how much he dips his shoulder. And I've actually talked to him about this before when I was struggling with my return and we were playing a lot of mixed doubles at the beginning of the year. And he said, try and hit it with your shoulder. And I thought that was such interesting advice and kind of gives you a little bit of perspective into how he thinks about his returns and his game. So I guess, Scott, if you were to summarize then the three key fundamentals, if I'm hearing you correctly, number one is judge it.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. To me, eyeballs judge the ball first. Because then you'll have a plan of, okay, now I need to get the paddle back and then use my body to hit it.
So number one is judge. Number two is get that paddle up, right? Like move, take that step. So number one's mental, number two's physical.
Yeah, I think number two is I think you said the word I was thinking, which was move, right? And that's move the paddle, like prepare the paddle, and move your body so that your footwork is, usually I like to think get behind this ball so that I can move through it. And then three is it's kind of trust that I can hit through this thing to get it deep. I can trust that my moving through this is going to work, and I just want to hit this thing back and deep.
Trust, baby, trust. That's the next t-shirt.
Yeah, trust the process.
I love it. Is there anything else, Scott, you want to touch on as it relates to returns?
Yeah, don't miss, because that's an immediate point.
Kristen, my better half, would say she does not like advice constructed in the form of a don't or a negative. Make it. Yeah. So we'll reverse it. Make it.
Yeah. Like don't miss is bad. That is bad advice. I actually think get low because a pickleball doesn't bounce up very high. So I think if some of the best returners are the ones kind of as what you like about Jaume is how he drops his shoulder. I think the one thing we probably didn't see in those three clips that if we looked at a ton of other great returners, there is a knee bend and a getting low down to the ball. I think that is involved at pro level returns. I think is super important. But even at the amateur game, there's plenty of people who have low trajectory serves do not bounce up. And so if it's not bouncing up, you have to get down and go to it. And so to me, it's like use what you saw with your eyeballs in step one to get down and get after this ball.
Love it. I feel like this was a masterclass from you on returns. Thank you, Scott. And with that said, now that returns have just been solved for mankind, what is next week on the Pickleball Breakdown going to be on?
Let me think. I used to be really, I used to be a math major in college, and this sequence, we started with the first shot, the serve, then we went to the second shot, the return. I'm really thinking of going with the third shot next.
Wow, did you pay for that math education? They took your money?
Just came in, really.
What comes after 1 and 2? You guessed it, the third shot, drop or drive. Just the third shot next week. All right, do not miss us next Wednesday, every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Pacific. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to have to edit this part out. Hold on. I got lost.
My cat almost jumped onto the laptop, which I would be fine with.